right rear let go just at that critical moment through the chase.
Thanks for the update. So, unfortunately for Jack, then he would have been a passenger in that process. Okay, we're going to get a restart this lap. It's good. It's going to give us 6 laps. Yeah, they've done a masterful job to manage that. So, well done to everybody in the Supercars recovery team. They've got them back on the Hino truck to get them back out of the way. Hopefully, it dragged them out of harm's way. So, Van Gisbergen, Waters, Mostert. The 2 Shell V-Power racing cars are line astern as well. Here we go. Shane's got control of the field. It reignites, and as they cross the line, there's going to be just 6 laps remaining. The green flag flies. We're ready to conclude the 2020 Super G Bordeaux Bathurst 1000. And here comes Cam Waters.
This is the critical exit. You've got to come out of here well. If you get the slipstream, you get the toe up the hill, you can get down the inside at turn 2. Did he come out of there well enough? We'll follow him up the hill. It's almost 260 kilometres an hour. And he moves it over slightly. He moves by one leg, flicks the other. He can't get down there yet. He's just a little bit too far back. But that's close.
Early in the stint on this set of tyres, Waters was racy and pulling those moves, and then he just faded towards the end. But now, here's an opportunity to reignite this attack, and he's got Mostert right behind him, followed by Coulthard, and then McLaughlin in here as well. So they're all bunched up. Tyres have cooled out, temperatures have dropped, and it's on for the back end of this race once more. We're riding now with Chaz over the top of the mountain. What's it look like and sound like? Drops the right rear too far off the edge of the racetrack that time. We saw it happen a couple of laps earlier as well, but that was spooky. Oh, more trouble now. So we've got a drama for Goddard, who's plucked the right front out of that car. And where's this thing going to land? And what impact on this race with just 6 laps to go? Van Gisbergen's hanging on by 0.5 of a second. Will there be another safety car? What will happen at Bathurst this year? Unbelievable conclusion to the race as always. He's parked up in the runoff area at Skyline. Now, what is going to happen there?
You probably got to call a safety car again. You can't leave it there, can you?
Well, it's up to Motorsport Australia Race Control. That car does not look good. It's had a nasty whack for Matt Stone Racing. So Van Gisbergen's got 0.5 of a second. It's these folks in here that have to make the choice to decide whether we race to the flag or do they leave the car parked in that position. What a difficult decision. Safety car is being deployed because we've seen so many cars go through there so far this weekend. Oh my goodness me. This is almost a carbon copy of what happened last year. The KO safety car's about to launch once more.
You were right there, Neil, at 220 kilometres an hour. You can't just leave the car parked there. So that's the right call. It's absolutely the right call in terms of safety. So Motorsport Australia and our race director, Tim Shank, a hugely experienced motorsport person, Formula 1 driver of yesteryear, sports car driver at the highest level, has made the call, and the safety car has been deployed. 5 laps remaining. It's a crazy mad race, isn't it?
It's going to be determined by a 2 or a 3 lap race again. Yeah. It's going to be determined by a 15 to 20 kilometre race. So what happened here? Well, that just steers straight up into the wall on the run between Reed Park and McPhillamy, and that's a heavy whack. That will hurt that one when you hit that concrete wall there at that sort of pace. Look at the lock that he's got on. He knows what's going to happen. It's understeered into the wall and crunch.
That is a bone shaker.
And Matt Stone will drop his head. What a traumatic weekend for the group of men and women in that garage. It's a new, young team. They've put in a valiant effort this weekend. They've had their trauma, and that puts an awful exclamation mark on the conclusion of proceedings for them. And that's Zane Goddard, who stepped out of the car. He's done a mighty job this weekend, pace-wise as well. In fact, the 2 young drivers that have shared this car, it's already been damaged earlier in the weekend, but they've been both consistently quick. And here we are inside both garages, down at Tickford and at the Red Bull Holden Racing team.
So it gives Cam Waters one more little sniff of being able to sneak down the inside. And for Shane Van Gisbergen, it means that he's got to come up with a way, of doing a restart that gives him a little gain. This is on board with James Courtney. The end of Mountain Straight. And what happens is there's all these different techniques of how you achieve the restart. Shane's already used one of his techniques. There's this understeer. Have a look at how much lock he's got on and see the brake light come on. So he knew he was in the fence and see how hard he's turning it. So that's young Zane Goddard. And Zane, as Neil just said before, has done a really good job. He's only 21 years of age. And that's about a 70 or 80 grand connection with the fence.
Yeah.
A lot of damage.
Possibly more.
Yeah.
And it's been a difficult weekend. They've done engine changes down there. They already had damage with this car from a shunt earlier in the weekend, so they'll just be scraping nuts and bolts back into the transporter for the forlorn trip home. There is Zane Goddard. What a disappointment, but he'll fight back. He's a guy with credentials, a young guy in a hurry, and that was just part of all the learning curve of dealing with this racetrack.
Yep.
And you know, we've seen a few of the young guys get in strife this weekend, and that's typical of the early days. Have a listen to this. Ouch. Concrete wins. Van Gisbergen, Waters, Most at the order when they get this secure back up onto the Hino truck. Then we'll be able to get back underway once more. And what about the tension inside these garages? How do you reckon the heart rates are travelling at Tickford and at Red Bull at the moment? Because anything can happen. I mean, we just see this year after year after year at the back end of the race. It's not a foregone conclusion. It looks as though Shane's got a tiny bit of pace in hand at the moment, but it's not enough to put your glasses down and suddenly rest. No. And for Waters, there's so much to play for. Mark Dutton's seen it all before. He's the team manager of the Red Bull Holden Racing team. David Couchy would regularly be the engineer for the 888 car for Jamie Whincup and Craig Lowndes. They're out of business today, but this guy's well in the game. He leads the race, and this is the one that's been escaping him in the recent past. He might close the deal today. He's a racer's racer. He's hardcore, and what an extraordinary conclusion he's going to peak out in this race today. Can you believe this?
That's crazy, isn't it? 31-year-old Kiwi who's looking for his first win at the great race. He's playing the 26-year-old young Australian in the monster Mustang.
They've been reduced to very, very low speed.
They're trying to maximise the amount of laps, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be my next point. But when you do that, your tyres cool out, pressure down even more. Also got to be a little bit careful sometimes just with temps, with water temp. These cars rely on airflow. He's cramping up a little bit, so you can see that Chaz Mostert was just stretching out his wrist and forearm, and that's from the thousands of gear changes that they do, and it's easy to over-squeeze the steering wheel around this racetrack for obvious reasons, particularly when there's a bit at stake.
I call it white knuckle fever.
That's exactly what it is. The car's on the back of the truck, the recovery vehicle. That's good news. So shortly they'll get that clear of the area.
So what do you do as your technique? Because we've seen one technique that Van Gisbergen used, and he did a nice job of it, but he went reasonably late. So do you go earlier? So do you, as you come under the Dunlop Bridge, do you fire it up earlier, but you run the risk of overrunning the final corner and making a little bit of an understeer turn in, and then Waters get to run on you. So how do you minimise your risk?
By doing what you do naturally and not being too fancy.
Yeah, that's pretty right.
I reckon. Yeah. You know, just don't get too cagey. You know, he's a great racer. He's vastly experienced, and he's got command of the race. He's got track position. So use all of those advantages in your back pocket and go down there on the racing line and do sensible things. Yep. And it'll probably work out. Yep. But I reckon if you try and play cagey games, oh, I'll slow him up a bit, or I'll run him in, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, that's where you're more likely out of rhythm to do something that can trip you over. So
that's what we're trying to get to, is the technique you use, the strategy you use to recommence the race. There's effectively the go point. So restart this lap. This is on. KO safety car.
Lights are out. Accelerating away from the field. Leader has held.
And it's the go point we're talking about. It's what you do right now when the safety car goes in. What you do from Van Gisbergen's perspective to recommence this race. 4 laps remaining.
And when they cross the line, that becomes 3. It's 18 kilometres of racing is going to determine the final outcome. Here's one question answered. How much stalking is Waters doing?
There you go.
He is all over him. He is literally on the rear bumper of that thing. He left his signature on it, and away goes Shane. We've got green flags down to the final corner. They've got to pull them up accurately. They've got to grab the throttles neatly and nicely right here as we go racing probably for the final time this weekend at Mount Panorama. Green flag. And it's Van Gisbergen over Waters. Mostert right with Waters as they make their run up the hill. This is going to be epic with 3 laps remaining.
He got a better run that time, Waters. But Mostert played himself into this also because that was a far better restart for Mostert this time.
Riding with Chaz. He's in with a shot here. Mark Winterbottom's covering in the background down there in 8th position at the moment. And look at the 2 Shelby Power Racing team cars in 4th and 5th. They are in the hunt as well. We ride on board in 3rd position with Mostert on the run up to turn 4. They're all covering to the inside. The experienced players know that you can be done in on the run up there. So now Van Gisbergen skips away by 0.2 of a second as they make the run up to the top of the hill. The quarry on the left, they grab 4th gear. This is 200 kilometres an hour as they bomb down into the metal grade. Now accelerating from Reed Park to McPhillamy. The cars jump up on 2 wheels and then they blast towards Skyline. This is 220 kilometres an hour. There's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all line astern. Van Gisbergen, Waters, Mostert, Coulthard, then McLaughlin. And covering the lot of them at the moment is 1.7 seconds.
Extraordinary motor race. So what does Cam Waters do? He's got to try to come out of here, out of Forest Elbow, and get a run, get in the toe, and get a slipstream effect down the straight.
Pressure's still coming up.
Pressures are still coming up is the word from Graham McPherson. He's telling him to be a little bit cautious with the way he grabs the brake pedal when he gets to the bottom of the hill of the chase. If he gets too greedy, he can block the brake when those tyres are not up to 10 more pressure. What a great conclusion to this motor race. Van Gisbergen might have one finger on the trophy, but he's only got a couple of car lengths in hand. It's Van Gisbergen over Waters and then Mostert. What a race. This time through, it will be 2 laps remaining and 12 kilometres of racing. To Murray's corner, Van Gisbergen still in command. Waters, Mostert, Coulthard, McLaughlin, Pye, Holdsworth, Winterbottom, Di Pasquale and James Courtney 10th. A lap speed check. Van Gisbergen did a 6.8, Waters did a 7.1, Mostert did a 7.3, Coulthard a 7.8 together with his teammate. Shane has got the pace at the moment.
He absolutely has. That was a very, very good restart and a good first lap. Based on tyre condition and temperature, he's been able to put that to good effect. So 0.5 of a second separates 1st and 2nd.
What a lap from Van Gisbergen when it mattered most. Yep, fastest final sector, fastest lap of the race so far. A 2 minute 5.7 is the quickest that they've done, and an unbelievable job to punch out a 6.8 under pressure. That might have been the little pressure relief that he needed on that lap, on the restart, on a cold tyre. He glides it up to the concrete wall. There's millimetres to the left of that thing. This means everything for Van Gisbergen. Look at those things hunting over the top of the mountain. Pressure motor racing, nothing in it, and everything to play for.
On board with the 2 young men that are looking for their first win of the great race. The Kiwi is 31 years of age, top right. The young bloke from Mildura, 26 years of age. Cam Waters, who's trying to get this monster Mustang into a spot that's close enough to get a run on Van Gisbergen. Van Gisbergen has done a beautiful job across the top of the hill. He's gapped them across the top of the hill by about 0.4 of a second. Beautiful job, Van Gisbergen.
It's been an immaculate drive today so far for Shane Van Gisbergen. And very soon, it'll be 1 lap to go. He turned on something special in those semi-wet conditions earlier in the day. And he has got another finger on this trophy now. The Peter Brock trophy is getting closer to him. He opens up that margin to 3/4 of a second. Garth Tander might pick up another victory here. And for 888 Race Engineering, they're one of the teams that have been ultra successful here. They have earned a heap of victories, 7 of them in 06, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 and 18. They might be about to get another one with 1 lap remaining. We've got a 9/10 of a second margin. Currently the podium is Van Gis, Waters and Mostert. Fastest again in the last sector for Van Gisbergen. What an incredible drive for him today. The last and most important lap of this race for him. And he's a big picture of absolute concentration.
A 5.64 on that lap's the fastest lap of the race on lap 160. That's an emphatic statement by Van Gisbergen. Holden have won 33 times on the mountain. Is this their 34th? They've won 569 race wins in the Australian Touring Car Championship or Supercars Championship. Will this be 570?
They dare not blink. They dare not breathe. And Triple Eight Race Engineering and the Red Bull Holden Racing Team. It might be win number 40 in his career for Van Gisbergen. He's been on the podium 115 times, but if he can pull this one off, it'll be special. Runs it over the top of the hill for the last time for Shane Van Gisbergen. 3 kilometres remaining. That's all that separates him from the greatest prize in Australian motorsport. Shane Van Gisbergen has got control of this motor race. He's put together a beautiful drive today. Cam Waters in second place. What a performance. Lines it up through Forest Elbow. Remember the start of the weekend? That's where it all went sideways for him with Tim Slade early in the day. But now the last sequence of gear changes. And stop and consider this, Mark. He was the runner-up here in 2016. He missed out by 1/10 of a second. He was the runner-up here last year. He missed out by 7/10 of a second. But more telling was in 2014. He had this thing by the throat and it got away from him. He should have won on that occasion, but he's going to do it today. He makes the run down to the final corner and Shane Van Gisbergen is about to put his foot on the brake for the very last time and line it up to the checkered flag. The 31-year-old Kiwi is the master of Bathurst and Shane Van Gisbergen takes victory at Mount Panorama.
Incredible. Incredible. Garth Vanderveer, Jeremy Moore, Grant McPherson, Holden Dane, of Red Bull Holden Racing Team and Triple Eight Racing have just succeeded. And for Holden, in their final year with the brand being retired from Australia, have won Australia's biggest motor race. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
4 victories.
Number
Number 4 is sweet. First one, though, for Shane Van Gisbergen. A beautiful drive today for Cam Waters. On the last lap of the race, Coulthard and McLaughlin did their fastest laps today. 5.9 for Fabian, 6 flat for McLaughlin. They came home in 4th and 5th, but there's your podium. Chaz Mostert gets on the podium again. Warren Luff gets on the podium again, and well done to Will Davison. He does it again. What an outstanding motor race and a beautiful drive today. So McLaughlin, as our Virgin Australia Supercars champion, he'll also do a lap of honour now together with Shane Van Gisbergen. And what a tremendous moment for both these Kiwis. They are brilliant racing drivers. And for McLaughlin, pulls his helmet off, disappears from Bathurst, jumps on an aeroplane and heads to the US to now commence an opportunity to drive an Indy car. A very special moment. How's that for you folks over there in New Zealand? Mark Scaife is all doubled over here in the commentary box, but you've got to say what a beautiful job today by Shane Van Gisbergen. And an incredible performance, 300 points in his back pocket. That'll vault him up the order in the championship. He's come up into 3rd. So Waters will be confirmed in 2nd place when we make this official, and they will burn the Dunlop rubber off these tyres. What a year for McLaughlin. 15 pole positions, more race victories than any other driver this year with 13 of them. He's closed out the championship in a beautiful way. He's finished up with 2,576 points. He did not make it onto the podium today. He got trapped at just the wrong moment with his co-driver Tim Slade with the safety car, and it didn't bounce his way. But you cannot take anything from Van Gisbergen and Tander today. Beautiful drive. The stuff that he did in the wet was masterful.
It certainly was. And it was mistake-free. That was the thing about today. There was so much intensity and it was mistake-free. One of the best drives of Shane Van Gisbergen's career.
Davey, Roland Dane, you must be one proud team owner. You've been bringing your team up here. You've won this before. You've been here 17 odd times. That must be one of the toughest, mate.
Yeah, it was. Shane had to put up with how many restarts then. It was great. No, it was great to watch. What an awesome battle between him and Cam. I think the standout was the pit stops. Twice we had to pit together.
Same time.
Twice we had to doing brake pads and then doing the same stuff. Shane trying to break his toes that he couldn't save fuel behind him, get out before us. It was strategically great.
Roland, you've worked with a lot of drivers, and for me, what Shane did in that last 3 or 4 laps then, when he needed 2 tenths, 3 tenths, more than any time in his life, he found it. Pretty special stuff, eh?
Yeah, well, he's actually the most intelligent racing driver from a point of view, it might sound odd, but he's actually in the car. He understands totally a race, you know, what's going on in the race, what's happening, who's doing what he's got underneath him. And that's where he's so good. That's what, and it really worked today. He knew when he had to be quick, when he didn't, manage the tyres at the beginning of the stint, etc., and then bring them in later on. Let old mate get to within 4 tenths or whatever, and then push when he needed to. And
Garth Tander, what a great effort from Garth, eh?
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, the guy did exactly what it says on the tin.
Give us one of these. Go and enjoy, mate. Thoroughly deserved, mate. You worked hard for that one. Well done.
Thank you.
And what a beautiful moment. That is a symbolic moment for Holden fans and for the Holden history at this place. Shane van Gisbergen pulled up at the top of the hill. One of our patrons kindly gave him a Holden flag, and he drives down Conrod Straight, one of the most famous pieces of tarmac in the country, to show off the final official factory Holden involvement at Bathurst. Extraordinary stuff. Well done, Shane.
It's a great comment from Roland. Garth Tander did exactly what it says on the tin, and it was good. And a great explanation of how the day unfolded. I reckon the tyres on this are going to be pretty second-hand by the time Scott McLaughlin gets to the end of this pretty brutal lap.
Where is he?
I know he's in there somewhere. That would smell putrid. He's come home in 5th place today, but he's confirmed his position at the top of the tree in the championship table. And yes, Roland's point, spot on about just the way the strategy unfolded today and the tactics that were going on between the two teams. And Shane just had that tiny little edge when it mattered. That car came to them during the day. I don't think it was quite there at the beginning, but it certainly was when it mattered later in the day. And he was just able to break that toe at the critical moment. What a marvellous performance, and he'll come back into the pit paddock here in a moment. And we'll check out these results for you. So, Shane van Gisbergen and Garth Tander, a first victory for Shane, a 4th for Garth Tander. For Cam Waters, the 2nd place. First time on the podium for him. For Will Davison, he's been up there before. Great drive for those guys. They miss out by just 0.8 of a second. It keeps alive that thing that we talk about every year. So now it becomes 10 of the last 15 have been determined by less than 1 second. Looking further afield, Heimgartner and O'Keefe, Davison, Webb, Jones, Blanchard. Nice recovery for Macaulay Jones and Tim Blanchard from the troubles they had at the top of the day. LeBrock and Moffat, Reynolds and Brown, Pither Owen, Kelly Wood. They will be classified with 144 laps, so they needed more than 121 to do that, so they've done it, and that was good recovery given the clutch troubles that they had. But right now the focus is all on this guy. He's an intense racer, takes no prisoners, and doesn't suffer any nonsense in this business. He's put together a masterful drive today, and what a performance. Deserving winner, home by 0.8663 officially is the margin for Shane van Gisbergen.
If you go on track his last 3 stints of that race, and you averaged his lap time across it, and you looked at the quality of the consistency, it's probably as good. If he just went and rated that drive, it's probably as good, if not the best drive of his career. It's extraordinary. It was qualifying lap after qualifying lap after qualifying lap.
I remember saying earlier in the weekend, at some stage, one of these weekends at Bathurst is coming to him, and it's come in 2020. So just checking out the elapsed time for the race, 6 hours, 10 minutes, 56 seconds. And I've only got some tracking in front of me back to 2006, but that's the 2nd quickest we've had. In 2018, it was 6 hours and 1 minute. So that's a very fast race today. And after all the discussion about wet weather, yes, we did have it, but it was only for a very fleeting period.
It gives him a bump.
He might need a bit of a hand to get back in. Now, those two cars managed to find each other at the start of the weekend, and they've managed to find each other at the end of the weekend too.
That's funny. That's just a little bit of Kiwi stuff.
You know, the thing that I applaud, Mark, is, you know, clearly we celebrate the winners, but I'm in love with the notion that all of these drivers and all of these